Welcome back to our channel, folks. Plumbing Made Easy. Today we are tackling a very common household plumbing issue, the old running toilet. Intermittently, we hear it kind of dribbling into the tank, hear the water coming on. We're going to show you how to diagnose what the actual problem is, how to fix it. So welcome along for the journey. So as you can hear, the problem that we've got is every now and then you could hear the fill valve coming on and the toilet's running. You just heard it go off. So we're going to show you how to pull open the tank, figure out what exactly the problem is, how to fix it. And if we come over inside and we look down the bowl, we can actually see where the water is dribbling down into the tank. So you see that water moving? That's a sign that we've got a leak inside of our tank. So as you can see on the right side there, you can see water is actually dribbling down into the tank, rather the bowl. So obviously we can see that there is a leak. Now inside of the tank, the top part of the toilet, that's where all the water is held that is used for the flush. It should not be running into the bowl unless you flush the handle. But now we can see we are not flushing the handle, and there clearly is water that is draining down into the bowl. So we're going to figure out where that's coming from, show you how to fix it. So we're going to go through just the basics of how a toilet works, how it flushes. So over here on the left-hand side of the tank, we have our handle. As we can see on the inside, this handle is connected to an arm that connects to a chain that connects to a flapper. When you lift this handle, it pulls on this chain, it lifts the flapper up, water is allowed to flow from inside of the tank down into the toilet, or the bowl of the toilet, I should say. And that's essentially how the water flushes the waste material out of the toilet. So as we saw before, water somehow is getting from this tank here down into the bowl. So there's only two ways that can really happen. One is by means of this little overflow tube on the top here, right? So we can see, however, that the water level is much lower than the top of the overflow tube. If the water level were to rise inside of the tank, the water level were to rise inside and flow to the top, then we would know that it possibly could be leaking to the tank through this overflow tube. But as you can see, the fill valve just came on. It's leaking, but nothing is going above the overflow tube. So we know this is not the source of the leak. So the only other issue could be is the flapper. So what we're going to do is show you how to disconnect the flapper, put a new one on, and we'll go from there. So the first thing we're going to do is turn the water off to the toilet by means of this angle stop. So we're just going to take this handle, we're going to turn it clockwise until it stops. We don't want to go so tight with a wrench or anything like that. Just hand tight is sufficient for what we want to do. So we're going to just take our hands and we're just going to turn this a few times until it gets nice and tight. And then what we can do is just flush the toilet in order to check and see if we hear water coming in. If we flush the toilet right now, we don't hear water coming in or see it coming into the toilet, we know that the valve is turned off properly. Okay, so we've got the water turned off down below, but as you can see, there's still water inside the tank. So all we're going to do is simply just flush the toilet. Okay, we're just going to lift the handle and let as much water drain out as possible so that it's out of our way. Okay, so we just hold the handle up, just let all that water drain out. As we can hear, the water is not pumping back into the toilet. It's not filling back up in the toilet, so we know that that angle stop is good. Okay, so now we've got this little flapper that's connected to the chain. First thing we can do is just simply disconnect the chain, and there's a little clip, almost like a paper clip. We can kind of just disconnect it there. All right, and then at the very bottom here, here's the new one. You see these little arms almost have these little holes, and it's how it's kind of flexible. See how it's kind of flexible? All we're going to do is just kind of pull these off of, on the existing one, pull these off of that little tower, the little plastic arms at the bottom. So we've drained the water down. We've got the old flapper at the bottom there. And what we're going to do is it's just loose rubber, soft rubber. So all we're going to do is just simply just take these arms. We're just going to lift it off of this little plastic piece down here. Okay, both sides, they kind of just pull off. There you go. That's how we remove the old one. As you can see, it's deteriorated. And the bottom is just not sealing properly against this opening. When you lift the flapper up, water that's inside the tank, that's where it goes down into the bowl and flushes out the waste product. So now what we're going to do is take the new flapper and connect it up. So now we've got our new flapper. It's the same exact one. What we're going to do is just put it into place and take each one of these arms and just hook them back on those little plastic hooks at the bottom there. Both sides, left and right side. Okay, like so. So we're going to take the chain that has a clip on the end, and we want to connect it to the end of the arm of the toilet handle. So as you can see, we're just going to kind of just clip in there, just like a paper clip. Just going to open it up and feed it through there. Bam. Okay, now you see how there's a little slack? We don't necessarily want that much slack in the chain here. So we can adjust this chain a little bit so that it's shorter and tighter. So we're just going to take that clip off. So we're going to show you right now how to make this chain a little bit shorter. We're going to adjust this clip. What we're going to do is just take this clip, we're going to take it off, and we're going to move it down a few lengths on the chain. Okay, so you can do it a few times. I'm just going to kind of guesstimate, maybe just about 1 inch or so down. I'm going to clip it back on there, like so. And then I'm going to put it back on that plastic arm. Okay, and see how it's a little bit more taut? That's what we want. So that essentially when you lift the handle, there's not a lot of slack. When you lift the handle, it'll lift the flapper. You don't want to have to pull a lot of slack out before the flapper starts moving. So now what we're going to do is turn the water back on and check to make sure that flapper does not allow water to drain through into the bowl when we're not flushing. So we're letting the toilet fill up. Once it fills up to the right height, which is, we can see the old water mark, I don't know, about 1.5 inches, 2 inches below the top of this tube right here. We're going to flush it maybe once, twice, 3 times and check for leaks. All right, here we go. Okay, so now that the flapper has closed, what we're going to do is let this fill up again. We're going to look inside the bowl and make sure we don't see any water leaking inside. Once the fill valve stops, like so, we should not hear any water dribbling inside of the bowl either. Okay, so we're going to continue to let that fill up. Once the fill valve stops and it's nice and quiet, we're going to open up the lid. We're going to look inside and visually and audibly listen for any leaks. So now that we've got the flapper replaced, we're going to go ahead and just flush the toilet, go down real smoothly. What we're going to do is just wait until the fill valve inside of the tank stops. I mean, in other words, the water level gets high enough, it'll stop, and then we can listen to make sure that there's no water flowing in from the inside through the flapper. We should just be able to hear no water, see no water coming in. Now, if you go to a hardware store, they do make these colored dyes that you can pour into the tank water to see if it's leaking through into the bowl. So that's another option. But as you can see, no water leaking through from the tank into the bowl. I hope you've enjoyed this replacement of a toilet flapper. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or videos you'd like to see, just drop it in the comments.